Hi everyone, Bryant Dillon from Fanbase Press here. I'm currently joined by Clay Adams and D.E. Schrader of Bloodline Comics Pictures. You may know them from Nightmare Theater, their Nightmare Theater horror comic anthologies, which have been just a big hit on Kickstarter. They've got something very special in store for fans of horror comic books and Kickstarter this holiday season. So let's find out more from the experts. Clay, David, welcome. I'm so glad to talk to you about this.
Ho, ho, ho. Thanks for having us.
Always good to see you, Brian.
Well, let's I guess pull back the curtain. You guys have a very Carmilla Christmas Carol coming up, and this is a take on the classic Charles Dickens A Christmas Carol, but obviously a twisted version of it. What do comic book fans need to know about this, and what made this the necessary next project for Bloodline Comics?
I think we just got really excited about the idea of doing a very Carmilla Christmas Carol. We did 1984, which was the follow-up to 1973, which are one shots with Carmilla set in different time periods. And we thought, well, what can we do? What can we do next? And I suggested to Dave, why don't we do a Christmas Carol, thinking that we might do it period. But Dave had the brilliant idea to kind of do it modern day. And I don't know, Dave, why don't you take it from there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we could have because Carmilla is an ageless vampire. Could have said it in any time period. And I think that's part of what's cool about Carmilla. I'm sure a lot of people know, some may not know that it's based on the Sheridan Le Fanu novella, which predates Dracula by 25 years. So she is considered the original literary vampire. And when we introduced her in Nightmare Theater 2, in a short story I did called Carmilla Comes Again, we wanted to bring her into like the modern era, and we set it in 1973, which is like the beginning of the modern era of women's liberation. And so my idea for her was she's like like a vampire Dexter, and through so many years of like, feeding on girls and young girls like she does in the novella, we thought, well, maybe she starts to realize like, oh, how do I make a difference in the world as this, this immortal vampire? And so her targets become richer, so to speak, and more powerful. So she basically just kills bad guys. And so I wanted to set it in the near future, the current day, but almost like a near future where instead of Ebenezer Scrooge, it's Elonezer Spooge, and
Oh,
it's kind of the Carmilla world, and so she takes on the world's worst billionaire, and they have a backstory. They have some a past from Silicon Valley in the 90s, and you see that in the story. So it follows the framework of Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
hmm.
And obviously it's got the sexy vampire vibe to it. But she is always getting vengeance against these guys. And so this particular character that she's going after is semi-recognizable in some ways.
Uh,
I did
Dave,
want
the lawyers just called.
oh,
They did want me to say that any similarity to any living
living
person,
person is
living or dead,
yes.
purely
It's important.
coincidental.
It
Yeah.
is. It is coincidental. The name is somewhat reminiscent, but yeah, exactly. I did want to just call it a Carmilla Christmas Carol, but Clay, because of his affinity for a very Brady Christmas, wanted to add the very, and so became a very Carmilla Christmas Carol.
Well, it's a real collaboration, and it is interesting that we are all on board for these eat the rich stories these days. It must be the environment we find ourselves in. I would love to dive a little bit further into the inspirations because I think some people are familiar with A Christmas Carol and Carmilla. Some are probably hearing about these for the first time. So when we are talking about the novella that served as inspiration. How much research did both of you do with that? And I guess what does that how did that inform the work of this character and the adventures that you've taken her on?
That's a great question. I think we both read the novella. I had read it a few years ago. I think I was vaguely aware of its existence, and I came across it while researching another project, probably Blazing Blade of Frankenstein. And I happened to just kind of mention it to Dave in passing, and he was like, "Wait a minute, hang on."
There's a
Uh,
lesbian vampire that predates Dracula. Why are we not doing a book with her? And I've seen a lot. Since we've done this, I have seen, there's a Canadian web series called Carmilla that's,
Hmm.
was kind of well loved. It's kind of small. There was the movie in 2019, which was pretty faithful adaptation of the novella. A little slow, almost doesn't touch on like some of the vampire aspects in a way. So we just wanted to kind of like supercharge her and almost make her like a superhero vampire and just make it bloodier and more violent and sexier and just kind of just go for it. And that's this version of Carmilla.
Well, and there is such a tradition in horror, especially in iconic series like Tales from the Dark Side or The Outer Limits or Twilight Zone, where we see these twists of people getting their just desserts, which seems totally in line with this story. It's also something that's very present in the other inspiration, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I mean,
Yeah.
completely a morality tale on its face, and also something that's infused with supernatural elements. Do either of you have do you have specific connections to that story? Is that a story that you hold close to your hearts, or was it just a vehicle to explore something with Carmilla?
It's something I always liked when I was younger. Like, I mean, that would always play. And I think the George C. Scott version is one
Sure.
that is
Hmm.
kind of like, for me, it's like kind of like the definitive television version. I saw the Muppets
Yeah,
Christmas
of
Carol,
course.
and like everyone kind of knows that story. I think what I was kind of amazed at is the gothic horror element that I didn't quite get when I was younger,
Yeah.
that I rewatched it, and when we were doing research for this, and I was like, wow, especially the Scott version. It's kind of dark, and it's definitely got like scary elements. It has horror elements to it, and I guess I didn't think about it as much when I was younger. Just like, it's Tiny Tim, and he changes his heart, kind of
Right.
opens up, and so I think it lended itself to kind of exploring the darker gothic horror elements, and then with a vampire, I just think it just worked really well, and it seems like it just kind of went together like chocolate and peanut butter.
Yeah, I went back and looked at the Muppets version, specifically looking
Great
for
version.
it's really fantastic because it's true to A Christmas Carol, but it also feels very Muppets. And
Yes.
so I was kind of looking at that, studying it to see like, well, how can we still do A Christmas Carol but make it Carmilla? And it's kind of amazing how easily it lent itself to sex and violence. um, and we do explore the origins of Bah Humbug. If you buy the book, you will learn what Bah Humbug means,
Okay. All
It
right.
is
where
it
this
is
came
it,
from,
it is
and
sho it is shocking and graphic and funny. I will
I
say
love
that, but
it.
but you have to get the book to see what the origin of humbug
A
is.
comic book version of Bah
Yes.
Humbug. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
the
That's
first
great.
appearance, if you will.
You have to get it bricked, so you can put it on your wall.
That's right.
Um, have either of you, this is just a slight tangent, but have either of you seen the Guy Pearce FX version of A Christmas Carol?
I did watch that for
That is
research.
a crazy, like that's another one that I just think about like the flexibility of this story because that is
Yeah.
such a dark take on the story, something that does not leave you with any necessarily holiday
Right.
jollies.
Right, right. I like that, and it was dark. It kind of reminded me of like almost like of a Tim Burton kind of, Sleepy Hollow kind of feel to it. But I think there's a is it Johnny Depp or Robert Downey? I think Johnny Depp is playing Scrooge in a new Christmas Carol
Oh,
version that's
really?
coming out like this
Interesting.
year, I think maybe. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those, and again, I think this goes hand in hand with comic books, but it's one of those iconic stories that we can see reimagined again and again, and relates in different ways throughout the ages. But you know what? Something that is hand in hand with that is the connection between horror and the holidays. We've done some podcasts recently where we've been looking at some of these 80s and 90s movies that are set genre pieces set in the holidays. And it always surprises me how often all of us who gather to discuss it are surprised that there's such flexibility. But when we, go to Christmas carols, whether it's, Dickens' Christmas carols or Christmas carols we sing, there's references to ghost stories, spirits. And there's this quote that I shared with both of you that I'll go ahead and read for the viewers. But I always think about it when I think about the more somber, darker elements of Christmas. And this is from the musician Sting, who put out a winter album at some point. But he said, quote, I find myself haunted by memories. For winter is the season of ghosts, and ghosts, if they can be said to reside anywhere, reside here in the season of frosts and in these long hours of darkness. We must treat them calmly and civilly before the snows melt and the cycle of the seasons begin once more. End quote. So I guess just with that in mind, I know that this is there's a lot of fun to this comic, but there's also this idea of like the darkness, the somberness of this season. What to each of you is the connection between horror and Christmas? Does it go together? Does it contrast for you? And did you discover anything, working specifically on this story?
For me, the connection is Phoebe Cates. Her
That's a great
monologue
one.
in Gremlins is
Yep.
fantastic. That is something that always stuck with me. And so, yeah, I just always associate Christmas with Gremlins and horror, and yeah.
Perfect. David?
Yeah, I was late to seeing Black Christmas, but it became one of my favorite horror movies, actually. And I think the connection there, which I always thought was amazing, was that Bob Clark directed both Black Christmas and then later A Christmas Story.
Right.
And he used the same cinematographer, and it has the same look to it. So I actually had an idea to have someone cut together both movies as a trailer and call it um a Black Christmas Story, and and because it looks the same, like when you see the outside of the house with those soft glow of the lights and everything. I don't know, and there is something about that Sting quote, "Oh Sting," because the winter does have that ghostly kind of feel, and the reflections that involves. Clay wrote a book called Red Xmas, which was a Santa horror story, and yeah, I just think they go together. I think because Silent Night, Deadly Night was one of the first
Yeah.
like 80s horror movies that everyone's like, what, Christmas and horror? But in the wake of that, I think looking back and seeing uh with Dickens, it's like it's always been there. Like there's always been that kind of connection, that ghostly connection.
I think it's intrinsic to the holiday because really, if not to get all philosophical, right? But if you really think about it, Christmas, right? Whether it's a religious celebration or just a celebration of the winter solstice, you're celebrating life in the middle of death. It's the season of death. It's the coldest season. It's the darkest season. I think it's pretty natural that people get very melancholy. And
Yeah.
then the holiday itself, you really kind of are just celebrating like, hey, let's remember that things are going to get good again. And so there's something about that I think lends itself to horror because horror too, I think, can give some people hope. I think because you're sort of like you, the audience member, or the reader, the viewer, whatever, you're kind of like the final girl, like you made it through yourself and you kind of went through this experience yourself and you survived and you
Yeah.
kind of know it's going to be okay.
It's a good point because I feel like I've heard a quote that the reason we like horror stories, the reason we like to be scared is because it reminds us that we're alive, which would be a very important thing in a season of death, if you will, or a season of life shrinking back and being renewed. Um, and it also strikes me from what you're saying, Clay, that with the Sting quote and with the idea of ghosts, I guess we're all trying to process something. We've reached the end of the year. We are pensive, we are reflective, and that does bring thoughts about people that aren't with us, things that we haven't completed, things that we want to make sure to do next year that we weren't able to do this year. And if your life has been hard, those thoughts are even darker. But I find that that connection to horror is that we process these things sometimes through stories and specifically horror stories. Like your story, when we are talking about the idea of being under the boot of oppressive forces, the massive wealth gaps that are present in both, the Dickens story and your version. We are, that's reality for a lot of people these days, and so while it's fun to put it in this uh, prism, I guess. I think you're also offering something that people will reflect on because they're experiencing that in their own lives potentially,
Right. Well, it's kind of the moment too, with the Spooge character, because uh that gap is obviously getting worse, and with technology, and there's a lot of that in this as well. Like when you see you know his office, and all the robots, and the things that are happening, like the detachment that he has from
Mm.
like the real people in the real world, and like has to go back and see like how he got there. And it is interesting. We wanted to do something. I wanted to do two endings. I wanted to do like a kind of a hopeful ending and a more violent kind of ending. You have to see the book to see what we chose, because we
Okay.
didn't go that way. We didn't do like a choose your own ending. It didn't work out that way, but I think what we got worked really well. And we wanted to tell a satirical story. We wanted to kind of lean into that and like really go for it. And then our artist Eric Tamayo is he really went for it. It's got everything that the Carmilla books have and more. So I think people are gonna really like it. It's a 32-page book. We've got a lot of great covers. It's a fun book, but it also has some really dark elements to it.
Well, tell us a little bit about the creative team. Have you worked with them before? What was it like collaborating with them on this title?
Yeah, so Eric we worked with on Carmilla Unbound 1984. And he had actually done a short for Dave for Nightmare Theater 3D. And they seemed to work well together. When Ismail Canales wasn't available, he had drawn the first one shot, 1973, and then the short Carmilla Comes Again. So we brought Eric on, and yeah, it just was kind of an immediate connection. I mean, he really took to the material. He seemed very enthusiastic about it. You could tell when the pages were coming back that he was having a lot of fun. And
He's
then
he's a he's a psychologist too, right?
Oh,
yeah, I think
really?
so. I think
Like
so.
he is
That's
he
his
is
day
like a
job.
certified psychologist,
Wow.
and is self-taught. He's a great artist. Like he did Star Trek for IDW, right?
IDW.
Well,
Yeah.
excellent,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, and then Alex Zeef did the colors, and she's been coloring since the beginning, I think, right?
She
She
did she
did
did all she did all of them. She did I don't think she did the short, right? Didn't
right. That
Ismail
was
did that,
Ismail,
but
yeah.
she's done, and she's the colorist on the Monster Matador books with Stephen Prince, and
Yes, yes, I
she
recognize the name.
she loves to they both seem to love working on this book. Like they really get into it. So that's been the team. And we hope they stay with us going forward.
And then a couple of schmoes behind the keyboard typing.
Who are those? Uncredited, right? Right.
Uncredited, John Doe's. The less
Well,
said about them, the better.
what are some of the like spotlight backer rewards that you would want to highlight for people that are interested?
Well, I mean, we always just sort of believe that like the book is the star. So like, we don't do a whole lot of bells and whistles, but we do have a lot of variant covers, and it's kind of tough to pick just one. So why not buy them all? We've got Emmanuel Taglietti. He's a renowned fumetti master. You've seen, I'm sure you've seen his work online. It's everywhere. We've been very lucky to have him provide us some covers for Nightmare Theater, and now Carmilla Unbound. We got Mexafunk coming back. He just sent us some great stuff today that really just, again, talk about somebody who really just seems to love working on this book. He really goes for it and does some crazy stuff. Dave brought in someone, Susperia. We never say the name right. Susperia Vilches, right?
Suspiria. right?
Suspiria? Okay. I don't
It's
know.
named after the book, the movie Suspiria, like,
Interesting.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
she was featured on Fanbase Press that did an interview with her. She does these very retro, beautiful, almost like poster-like images, and she's taken off really, really big, and her covers are beautiful in this. Um, and then Eric did a version. He did the standard version. So I think there's six covers total, and then there's the not safe for work versions if you prefer. So there's a lot to choose from, and then the Mexifunk wraparound will also be a poster. And we might have a few other things up our sleeve too, but you have to check out the campaign.
Some surprises. Excellent, excellent. Well, my next question is a little bit off the beaten path, but we've been talking to everyone this year. It's Fanbase Press's 15th anniversary. We usually pick a theme for the year. The theme this year has been community, or specifically building your community. There's more you can learn about that if you're hearing about it for the first time at fanbasepress.com. But one thing we've been doing with the interviews we have, the stories we are discussing, is just talking about if there is an aspect, either in the story or the creation process, that speaks to community and its importance and power within our community, the comics community, the horror community, and also just general society. So I'd ask both of you, when we're looking at a very Carmilla Christmas Carol or your experience working on it, what do you think it has to say about the concept community, if at all?
I think it has a lot to say. I mean, it's partly because the original story, right? Christmas Carol has a lot to say about
Sure.
community and your role in it and your responsibility, right, as a citizen. And so that's just sort of, baked into the cake there. But then I think when you come to Carmilla herself, Dave mentioned that she's kind of this Dexter character who only kills the bad guys. That was really appealing to me from a writing perspective, but then also, would this person who's been alive for so long, uh, um, you know, what kind of community would they build around themselves? And so we've kind of created this situation where Carmilla, over the years, has built up these operatives, a community of other female vampires that kind of help her out. And so we saw a little bit of that in 1984. We're seeing a little bit more of it here in A Very Carmilla Christmas Carol. And you'll definitely see more of that going forward. But she has her own community, and I think that's in stark contrast to Ebenezer Spooge, whose community is sex robots. So uh, take take of that what you will. And then just in terms of like working on the project, like we were saying, this is a team we've worked with before. It's a great
Yeah.
community of people that we love working with again and again and again. Going back to that, well, we seem to use a lot of the same cover artists and things, but it's like, you find people you like working with and you just want to keep doing it. And the horror community has really embraced us. We've been doing a lot of horror conventions this last year and have really fallen in love with that community and how embracing they've been. And they seem to like our stuff and we love them right back.
Yeah. We noticed that, like, when we tabled at Comic-Con San Diego this for the first time last year, and there's a lot more people that come through, but they're not necessarily all horror fans. So when
Sure.
we do the horror cons like Monster Palooza or Son of Monster Palooza, like, they're already horror fans. So there's so much more concentrated interest in that. And we've really found, like, these people are great. Like, some people have preconceived notions about, like, what hardcore horror fans are like. And there's an array of types, right? But they all seem to, like, they really know their horror, they know what they like, but they're just really nice people too, and really fun to talk with and talk shop with. I also want to mention Kickstarter in general,
Oh
because I think
yeah.
before we started recording, we talked about, Richard Fairgray, and he had reservations about starting Kickstarters. But I said, just get on there. That's your own home base, and people can come to you, and you can grow that audience. And so we've grown the audience, and I think it's certainly helped us having anthologies to start with. When we did Nightmare Theater 1, we had a team of 33 amazing creators that were involved. And so that gave us a nice base for people to kind of come back and sample the work. And when you do good books and you treat the customers really well, we always try to be receptive to the audience and when they need something or if there's a mistake or something that we fix it, we want them to come back. And I can't tell you how many people have said this is like the best experience they've had in like dealing with a Kickstarter and getting their books and being receptive to what they need. And so that community's grown and we've been very grateful to have it. Yeah,
I think Kickstarter, and we were saying this a little bit in that discussion you referenced. I think it's the natural evolution of kind of where we're going as indie comic creators. I think it applies to many things, but there is a strong comic community on there, and the our interactions through social media with celebrities, with people that we idolize these days, people expect to be able to get some kind of response or some sort of inside baseball kind of peak, you know? And so Kickstarter's set up for that. It's set up for those fans that want a little bit more, that want that contact with the creator. So knowing that you are interacting with them that way, I think just speaks to the strength of that platform for creating things like this. But the other thing I would briefly ask you about is also your experience as with the comic creator community on Kickstarter. Something that I've noticed that I don't think most people would assume is it's not competitive in the way that one would think. It's many people are out there to support every single campaign, whether they can support it financially or just by, sharing the word. And it really feels like you're part of a team as opposed to fighting everyone to get knowledge have or to get noticed. Have you seen the same or have your experiences been different?
No, it's been absolutely the same. I mean, it's such a supportive community, and Kickstarter does work best when creators are amplifying other creators. I tend to, whether it's, campaigns that I just do for myself or when Dave and I are running campaigns, we'll always shout out other campaigns that we think
Sure.
are cool, or maybe we have an opportunity to do a crossover print or something with another campaign that's running. And that's a way of just sort of helping get eyeballs on other campaigns because there's so many projects out there. You may not necessarily know, what's a good campaign to check out, but if I say it's good or Dave says it's good or Charlie Stickney says it's good or Richard Fairgray, whoever, if they give it their seal of approval, maybe you've seen it at the bottom of updates or whatever.
Right.
But now you might go, oh, well, maybe I will check that out if they say it's good, and it really does. A rising tide lifts all boats, I guess.
Absolutely.
yeah, I think I've seen that. I've seen a lot of that because even something I would never know, and I'll see, oh, so and so back this, and I see it on an update in an email, and I'll check it out, and I'll say, I like that artist, or maybe we can get that artist for one of our future
Sure.
books,
Yeah.
and so you back it, or you promote it on Blue Sky or whatever you want to do, like just to kind of have that community. It is a sense of community, and I really like it. It's definitely less competitive than I thought it would be, and a lot more collaborative.
So, is there anything that you would say that we haven't touched on in regards to a very Carmilla Christmas Carol that we should let viewers know about before we wrap things up?
It's not for children.
If
I
you
feel
did
like
not
we should,
understand that yet.
Please do not buy this for your kids. That's all. But it's
but
a lot
hide
of
it from them,
hide it from
or
them.
from your parents.
But it is a lot of fun. This is probably the wildest adventure Carmilla's had yet, and we're very excited to get it in people's hands. Uh, yeah, it's I don't know what else can we say about it, Clay? It's just it's our craziest book yet.
It's definitely the craziest adventure yet. It's a little bit of a departure from the rest of the Carmilla Unbound series, which is not that that's super serious. There's definitely some levity, in that series as well. You'll have a good time. But I think with a very Carmilla Christmas Carol, we did lean into a little bit some more of the humor. I think it's our funniest book, it's our sexiest book, it's our wildest book. So if you like if you're like Spinal Tap and you want to turn it up to 11, check this one out.
Excellent. I think that should be the pull quote on there. Well, so where do we go? Where do we go to find more out about this Kickstarter, and where do we go to find out just generally your both of your work in general? Where do we go?
So you can check out A Very Carmilla Christmas Carol at bit.ly/Carmilla Christmas. And those C's are capitalized. That does make a difference. bit.ly/Carmilla Christmas. And you can find me. I'm on Substack, clayadams.substack.com. I'm still one of the few people left on Twitter at Clay's Evil Twin. And you can also find my work at Fried Comics on Kickstarter as well.
I am on Instagram, Boo, and Blue Sky at Schraderopolis. And then we have Bloodline Comics at Bloodline Comics and at Bloodline Comics Pictures. And you can check us out there.
Okay, and viewers, we will make it easy for you. We'll put links to the Kickstarter campaign in the show notes for this video interview. So look for them there if you need to find them. David, Clay, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for making some time to talk to us about it.
Thank you
Thanks so
so
much for
much.
having us.
Appreciate it.
All right, best of luck with everything, and a very, very, merry but creepy Christmas.
A very Carmilla Christmas to you too.
Thank you.